Warm welcome to all of you and a warm welcome to our speakers today, From Chaos to Calm. I hope all of you are doing well and that you're safe, and I hope that this webinar can be useful for you today, because for me, one of the reasons we decided to organize this webinar is precisely because we all know that we've been doing so much nutritionally. We've been informing ourselves about this challenging times with COVID that we're living through. But not all of us are immune to some of these effects that the virus is having on us, not just physically, but also emotionally, and also from within. We are going through quite a few storms in different ways. And precisely the evening's webinar is about learning how to really navigate through these storms. So with no further ado, I'd like to invite our speakers for this evening, Gabrielle Fritz and Nick Haddadi. Hi, Gabrielle. Hi, Nick. And our speakers today are not just meditators themselves, but they are alternative coaches, alternative therapists. They have a lot of experience using very specific techniques to master our emotions and our minds. And we hope that both of them can really walk us through their processes and what's really worked for them. I wanted to also let you know that we will be taking in questions, and you do have a Q&A chat box, not the chat, but there's a Q&A panel. So please feel free to add in your questions, and we will be dedicating a fair amount of time interviewing our expert speakers today. And we will start with Gabrielle. So she will be speaking for about 15-20 minutes, taking us through her processes, and then followed by Nick, and then we will move on to the interview questions. So over to you, Gabby.
Unmute myself. Hello. I hope that everyone can hear me. Good evening, everyone, wherever you are. Yeah, my name is Gabby, and I'm going to be just talking a little bit about sharing my tools and my techniques of how to stay calm, how to stay happy, how to stay in balance during times like this, or during time of self-isolation. And I don't know if you wanted to ask me a question to go into this.
Yes, Gabby. I think one of the key questions here is, how do we navigate through these storms of COVID? So a lot of people are going through different experiences. Some people have a lot of unexpected situations at home where they have to try to adjust to people they're living with. Other people have to learn how to cope with not being in touch with anyone, and literally being in self-isolation. And I think each one of us is going through a different experience to be able to really navigate through our emotions with everything that's going on. That's quite a situation that's quite out of our own control. So what do you think are the best ways to deal with this?
Well, it's interesting that you just said things that are out of our control. I think that's where most of our problems come from, that our logical mind likes to be in control. And if we're not in control of things, if things are not going the way we planned, and suddenly something happens where we seemingly seem to be out of control of outer circumstances, our logical minds, or something, our subconscious mind, starts to panic and we have this fear of the unknown. If you think of this, I thought of this just earlier on actually, if you think of children, they always live in the unknown. They don't know what's coming next year. They don't know, the plans that we have, so they're really comfortable living in the now. And I think as adults, one of the first things that is just coming to me as you're saying, we feel out of control of these situations, is I think it's because we like to plan so much, and we like to be way too much in our logical minds rather than being in the present moment. Right now, right here, if you take just 1 second of just a couple of seconds, just listening to your breath, listening to the noises in the room, wherever you are out there, just focusing on your heartbeat, on the emotions you're feeling, the thoughts that are flowing in your head. Right now, in this very moment, does worry exist? Does fear exist? Do any of these things? So we spend so much time as adults to either in our minds, either in the future or in the past, instead of in the right now. So I think this is a beautiful opportunity. And I think that's why, as part of the write-up for this webinar, we kind of called it from turn self-isolation into self-realization. Because as much as it kind of shook all of us, whatever happened, because it was unexpected for all of us, we all had plans and things that we were going to do, and suddenly it was like, bam, no, none of this is going to happen. And obviously some people are also in very tough situations where their job, you know, they're not working anymore and all of that. But if we kind of find if we kind of use this time instead of, because what we also saw so much, and that's another thing I want to focus on today, is this stream. When something happens to the outside world, yes, we're never in control. When you're never in control of what happens outside of you, ever, not even with the people that you live with, your closest ones, your family members, your loved ones, your kids. You can never control any of their actions, their thoughts, their feelings. The only thing you're ever in charge of is yourself. So you can always control the inside, how you're feeling about something, how you're seeing something, how you're reacting to something. And I think today I want to focus a lot about, instead of us, and especially through the media, through society nowadays, right, where things spread like a virus, news spreads, you know, from here to there, fear spreads, panic spreads. I think that's all a lot more dangerous than this actual virus. The fear, the panic spreading, right? And the mind, because what's spreading is worry, is fear. These are energies, right? That a lot of us, if you're not in charge of your own emotions, of your own mindset, right? And you're not used to kind of listening to yourself, referring to yourself and listening to the outside. And this is, by the way, not that different to other situations in our lives. I run programs, weekly 5-week programs, group programs, right? Where I have people in a group, and before I had a program right before COVID started, and then in the middle of it, COVID started, and then we had to go onto Zoom. But the stuff they talked about before in these sessions, so we share and talk about, okay, what's challenging in our environments, was exactly the same stuff on a lower scale. It was about, okay, I don't know how to deal with outside, so constantly about outside circumstances affecting us and us feeling like we're out of control of how our families react, how our, we have problems with work people who are negative. How can we deal with that? And how can we, it's the same now with this, just on a bigger scale. So the principles, the tools are the same. You don't have to, in situations like this, and that's what Carl Jung calls the collective consciousness, collective subconscious, right? We all get swept up in this big ball of, and everyone passes on these energies to each other and these thoughts and these, talk, instead of just, there's very few people who actually switch off and actually refer to themselves and say, okay, no, I'm not going to take on what you think about this, what you feel. I'm actually going to choose myself, how I want to think about this, how I want to feel. Mostly it's about how I want to feel. And that's a lot about learning to control your thoughts, your mind, and your emotions. Most people think they're out of control of their thoughts and their emotions. They just tag along, and they, so even within themselves, they don't even need to be influenced by other people. They're out of control. They get, it's like a raging river that just takes us along, right? And it's an energy as well. Our thoughts and our emotions are energies, right? And we all interact with these energies. So if you have very strong energy around you, that's why fear and panic spread so easily, because it's a heavy, intense energy, right? And if you're not used to managing your own energy and kind of building, again, look at children, always the best teachers, always the best examples. They're so used to being in their own energy and filling themselves with happiness, with happy thoughts, if they're around people who are really negative, they don't even notice it, because their own energy field, their own thoughts are so positive. They're so strong in their own energy, in their mindset, in their thinking, that the outside world cannot really penetrate that, right? Until they become older, and then, they get because all that happens is we all have mental and emotional patterns. That's all it is. We have habits of thinking, habits of feeling. So something like panic or fear, unless it's like an immediate thing, But these things don't happen from one day to the next. It's because we go on and on and on and on about this, right? Until it becomes an energy that becomes more and more difficult to deal with. So the thing you can do is to actually just take a step back from everything, detach. You're not your thoughts, you're not your emotions. And that's why I practice like meditation. At the very end, we're going to do just like a super quick 5-minute meditation. If you could incorporate that in your daily life all the time, not just when there's a virus, because, you know, people sometimes use spirituality and all these mindset techniques and all of that when bad things happen, or they turn to religion or whatever, and they pray suddenly when they're about to die or something like that, right? But how about these spiritual practices? They're not just for the worst times, they're for like every day. So I try to meditate every single day for about 10 minutes in the morning. It kind of, and that's why when something big like that happens, I'm not as easily unhinged, right? It's a difference between like a blade of grass, that when something happens, a wind blows from the outside and it's being blown this way, and then something comes from that side and it's blowing that way, right? Instead, you become a really solid tree that's rooted firmly in the ground, right? And you know who you are. And then when something happens, yes, you bend a little bit, but it's very easy for you to go back to the center. You're not, does that make sense? So practices such as daily meditation, whatever you do, or what else can you do? Meditation is just a very amazing thing, because what meditation does is it helps you to step away from your thoughts, from your emotions, from the outside world. It helps you to deal with stress. It helps you to calm your mind. It helps you to focus. So a lot of people identify with their mind, and they identify with their emotions. They think, and that's why they feel out of control of them, when actually they're not. You're not your mind, you're not your emotions. These are things flowing through you, because if you can observe something, that cannot be you. That's why with meditation, all you do, there are different ways to meditate, but what we're going to try to do at the end for those who have never meditated is just about, okay, become aware. And not just in meditation, in your daily life, become aware of your thinking. Like, what am I thinking? Why am I just following the crowd? Why am I doing this? Or do I need to do this? Do I need to think about COVID all the time? Do I need to wake up in the morning and immediately check my phone? Or can I do something? Can I start my day more intentionally? And that's what I want to use today, sort of to remind people as one of the most powerful tools, in my opinion. It's just, you have a choice. People don't realize they live. So that's the difference between living mindlessly, right, and doing things mindlessly, and living mindfully, where you wake up and you don't start your day on your phone or whatever. You take half an hour to kind of really create intentions. What do I want my day to be? What do I want? A little bit of a meditation or something where you're not always running. And because what's happened here, why a lot of people are so fearful or panicked now, is because a lot of us live in this cycle, in this hamster wheel of, okay, Monday to Friday, do this. It's always the same stuff, right? And then suddenly your mind, your emotions get used to that. And then suddenly when it stops, you don't know what to do with that energy. It's like, oh my God. And this is why this time, what just happened now in the beginning, and it was the same for me. I had a week of, oh my God, what, of emotions coming up of, okay, I don't want to be on at home all the time, and that stuff. So what happened in this period, or when we're kind of shut down, or we have to stay in one place like that, our stuff will also come up. Our shadows will come up, our fears, our things that we normally. So the beautiful thing about this is, because normally we move, we run, we walk, we run away from problems. We don't face them, right? In our families and stuff. So if something, if there are problems within our relationships, with the people around us, or within ourselves, so with the relationship with ourselves, by moving, by going out, by meeting people, by all of that, we're not really facing stuff. So now we're forced to face that. So stuff will come up. The stuff that's unresolved within us, right? Fears, suppressed emotions, whatever it is, you will get triggered. I've had a couple of clients where in the beginning of the shutdown, I was, again, going back to this training for this 5-week program that I have, there was one client who was in it who was doing really well, right, during the program, because it was amazing. It's very inspiring to talk in the group and everything. And then suddenly this shutdown happened, and she was under stress so much more because kids and her husband and all these things. And she got back into her old emotions, and she was really disappointed with herself that she'd failed. She didn't change enough and all of that. And I said, hold on. This is just energy that needs to come up. So don't run away. So the other tool is, first of all, you always have a choice. So become more aware of your choices or what you're doing. And the other one is, don't be afraid of your emotions that come up. They're just emotions. They're nothing else. That's why you have kids. When emotions come up, they let them out. They know, they don't suppress stuff. And that's why they have tantrums, they have, they scream and all that. And then once they've let it out, they feel better again, right? Because emotions, especially if they're heavy ones, if they're like anger or fear or anxiety, if you don't do anything with that energy, where's it going to stay? It's going to stay within you, right? So again, things like meditation can help shift these energies, emotions. Exercise helps with that as well, for instance, right? To shift nervous energy or stressful energy. So as an example, if you don't brush your teeth for a month, right? What's going to happen? Question to everyone out there. Your stuff is going to build up, right? It's the same with stress. Stress being, any toxic, so mental stress, emotional stress. If you don't regularly cleanse this, right, and do something to kind of, either through meditation or some spiritual practice or a walk in the park or something that you enjoy doing, right, to relieve that energy is going to keep building up, keep building up, keep building up. And then when a lockdown like this happens, bam, the stuff that comes up in us, right, the shadows that a lot of us have to face, they're not new shadows. That's old stuff. That's really old stuff that comes up, right? But when it comes up, don't be afraid of it, because that's the challenge of shadows coming up. They're nothing to be afraid of. A shadow is just something, an energy that wants to come up and wants to be released. So the more, if you imagine these shadows like your little kids, your little children, the way you would treat your little children, with a lot of love, with a lot of patience, right? Without judgment. And then when this energy comes up, so the way emotions, old emotional baggage gets released is, guess what? By coming up, it has to come up and out. That's how you release it, right? Like at the bottom of the ocean where you have a lot of debris. It only comes up when you do that, right? It only comes to the surface like that. It's the same with your emotions. So if you have fears, if you have underlying tensions in your relationships and all of that stuff, don't be afraid of it. Deal with it. Face it. Yeah. With courage, with whatever it is, right? And don't judge it. Don't make it more than it needs to be. Emotions are just emotions, right? So we sometimes go like, well, you shouldn't be doing this, and I shouldn't be feeling that, and I shouldn't be feeling anger. Why? It's just an emotion. If we keep judging it and believing that it's wrong and all of that, that's when it keeps, whatever you resist will persist, right? So if you can actually use this time to make peace with these things that have come up, with your fears, maybe fears of being alone, maybe fears of, if you've not had a job or something, or fears around money, for instance. Every single has connections to, how should I say that? Money issues have connections to certain emotions that we feel, right? So people with money problems, they're usually used to feeling certain emotions, like feelings of feeling stuck in life, feeling powerless, feeling all these kind of things, right? And a lack of money or a lack of opportunities is just is a reflection of their inner self, right? So the way reality works, the outside is basically a reflection of the inside. Yeah. Everything in your life, your relationship with yourself, the things that you do, everything are a reflection of your thoughts and your emotions, right? Your thoughts, your beliefs, and your emotions. So if you want to change anything on the outside, all you need to do is make changes within, right? So again, if there are fears about money and all these things on the outside, what you need to look at to change these things is just do some of the inner work. And that's why this stopping and not doing anything and actually looking at ourselves, and this is what I thought earlier as well about self-realization. What does that word actually mean? It's not just about, it means several things, but it's also, I think it means we're meeting ourselves. We're taking time to meet ourselves, not running off, and because we spend so much time with other people that we sometimes lose ourselves in our, you know, relations with other people, we run away from ourselves and we lose our identity. We get so caught up in our outside world that we forget about the inside world. So I think it's a beautiful opportunity to kind of really look at the things that we want to change in our lives. For instance, also the people who don't have secure jobs or something. I think what comes out of situations like that, I know it's always challenging. So challenges in life and horrible situations, they're not always bad. They seem bad for a while, but actually they're very often, or usually always, blessings in disguise, teachings in disguise, right? So by someone having problems right now and having these fears right now, okay, guess what? Now is the time to learn to transmute this energy, right? To face it, to heal it, and to transmute it to a higher level. So it's kind of like shedding an old you and moving towards facing these things and healing them.
That's very interesting, Gabby. And actually, we're getting a lot of participants saying that what you're saying is really useful and makes complete sense. But I think from the point of view of, as you said, you know, we're faced with our shadows. We are stuck with ourselves right now, as you well said. And sometimes, like you said, we can do this with courage, but sometimes I think it can be quite an unpleasant experience to be faced with these emotions, or to be able to understand or disarm what these emotions actually are. Because as you said, you know, whatever is inside is a reflection of what's happening outside us. So how can we disarm, in a sense, how can we disarm these emotions or these fears or these illusions at this very moment when we're feeling this way?
What just came to me as you were talking was a quote by Buddha, and I'm just paraphrasing it because I don't 100% know it. If it's something like, if your compassion doesn't include yourself, then it's incomplete. So the way we would treat someone else who's suffering, who's going through problems, we always are lovely to other people. What about ourselves? So that's the first thing I would say, that when you have stuff going on, doesn't matter what it is, right? Anger or blah, blah, blah. Don't judge yourself. Oh my God. It's okay to feel emotions. They're just emotions, because the more you judge them, you create beliefs around them and stories. A belief is just a story, right? Beliefs are just thoughts you keep thinking, nothing else. They're not truth. They're not facts, right? So that's why we have so many different beliefs, right? So it's just a story. And so don't judge yourself. Don't create stories that are negative, right? Just see it as something neutral. It's an emotion. That's it. Whether it's anger is not bad. Rage is not bad. They're emotions that need to come out. So, but the problem is if you start judging these things and start beating yourself up about it and start feeling bad about it, you're just perpetuating the cycle. You're not going to get out of it. Does that make sense? So what you actually need to do is just be patient with yourself and be the way you would treat your little child. When you look at little children, sorry, when you look at little children, they don't, we know that they don't know everything yet, right? There's something about being young where we know that they have to learn a lot of things, right? We know that as adults, but we are the same, right? There's so much we still have to learn. So why are we not treating ourselves in the same way? We're not perfect. We don't need to be perfect. Perfection is overrated and it's boring anyway, and it doesn't even exist because we constantly evolve. Michelle Obama's book title, I think Becoming, was the best book title ever, because that's what life is about. It's never ending. Our evolution never ends, right? So perfection is not a noun, it's a verb. We're constantly perfecting and constantly getting better.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, Gabby. There are a few questions coming in,
Okay.
and but I wanted to give enough time for question and answers at the end. So
Yeah.
I would like Nick to chip in right now and tell us a little bit. Yes, yes.
Can I say one last thing? Because I want to add, that was the first thing, to be patient with you. I just wanted to finish the thought. To be good to yourself, compassionate with yourself, patient with yourself. The second thing is also to realize that you always have a choice in every moment. That you can always, if you're feeling bad, if you're feeling horrible, that usually it's because of your focus and your attention to something. You don't feel negative emotion unless you are focusing on something negative. Yeah. So when you next time feel a negative emotion or negative emotions come up, then sit and ask yourself, where does this actually come from? Sometimes when I don't get upset very often. I'm lucky in that way, or I don't know. But when I do, or when I feel a little bit agitated or something, in that moment nowadays, because I really question myself, my mind, what it tells me. Our mind is a computer that runs on autopilot. Yeah, it's a program that you've programmed. Don't believe in everything it tries to tell you, right? So when stuff comes up, I ask myself, okay, where does this come from now? Where does this negative emotion come from? And then I realize, oh, okay, it's because I haven't eaten anything. It's because of this. It's because I'm nervous. Usually there's a really easy reason behind it, right? And when you figure that out, or even if you don't figure it out, make a choice, take 1 or 2 deep breaths, let it go, and shift your attention, shift your focus on something that makes you feel better. That's as simple as that. It's like interrupting a circuit, an electrical circuit. The more you do that, the more you're training your mind and your emotions not to go to certain places. And so you always have a choice with your mind, with your attention, because what you focus on grows, always.
Absolutely. What you focus on grows. And it's interesting you're saying that, Gabby, about choice, because in some of the conversations I had with Nick, we spoke a lot about the wisdom of choice, as he put it to me, and learning how to make the right decisions for ourselves. So it would be lovely to hear Nick share a little bit about this idea behind the wisdom of choice and some of his ways of navigating through the storms of our minds during these challenging times.
Good evening, everyone. I'm really happy that you're here with us this evening, and I'm happy to be with you. Just kind of running off the back of what Gabby shared, because I believe it's incredibly pertinent, and it's this notion of the unknown and being really uncomfortable with it. And I feel as I am growing through my journey of life, trying to figure things out myself, I'm beginning to realize that a big part of maturity is being completely all right and okay with the unknown, and being a curious, compassionate witness and observer of the unfolding, the natural, beautiful unfolding of life that my limited want, expectation, or needs could not script. It's far more beautiful than that. It supersedes, the story of life supersedes my expectations every time of how we move through chaos and come out of the other end in complete beauty, strengthened by it, shining. And it really harks back to a beautiful story from the Masnavi written by Rumi in terms of the unknown, where there is a blacksmith who is working in an incredibly focused and diligent way at creating something. And there's a young man walking down the street and who gets really kind of attracted by this sight. And so he stands and kind of watches what the blacksmith is doing from a distance. And the blacksmith has his back turned to him. And the young man asks, "Excuse me, what are you doing? What are you making?" And the blacksmith, being in the zone, in a complete state of flow and deeply focused on his work, doesn't reply. And eventually the boy realizes, I'll just have some patience and whatever else. And after a couple of hours, the blacksmith pulls out a beautiful piece of chainmail, right? And that's the end product. And really the beauty of that story is just have that patience, that tolerance, just to see what kind of beauty is being created in front of you without having the urgency or the haste or this kind of fidgety, desire to constantly. It's like that, that annoying younger sibling or annoying younger cousin who at every scene of every film that you're watching with them asks, what's happening? What's going to happen next? And it's like, we are going through this just the same way as any other human being. And it's two different mindsets, isn't it? One mindset is watching the story kind of build on itself and being incredibly content and joyous on its building. And another one is a mindset that is rather afflicted at what is happening because it's not within the reach of its control or its immediate control anyway. What I'd like to do is to briefly take us through an experience, because I believe that we are, at this moment, myself included, completely overloaded with information. And at some point, you have to kind of put a pause button on the theory and the information and really empower and enrich your practice. And that's where you'll see benefits, right? When you're sitting for 10 hours, 100 hours, 200 hours, whether that's through journaling, whether that's through mind mapping, whether that's through silence, whether that's through chanting, whatever your modality is, you really have to, at this moment in time, dig deep into your practice in order to see the face of the faceless being that's looking outside of these eyes. So if everyone would like to join me, and I would gently kind of guide you guys through a very brief meditative experience. And you're welcome to open your eyes, keep your eyes open, or close them, however you feel comfortable. I will close mine. And gently anchor yourself into whatever point of your body is currently in contact with a chair, or whether your feet are touching the floor. Just anchor yourself into this space right now, using my voice and the point of contact of your body to the ground or the chair beneath you. Gently bring your awareness to your breath, because this is our entry point between what's conscious and what's unconscious. It's our entry point to the internal and the external in a constant symbiotic dance and relationship. And with each breath, visualize this beautiful, magnificent light flowing into your nostril and moving into the entirety of your body. Like cool water on a hot day, gently seeping into every cell, washing away that which is no longer needed. And on the out breath, release whatever that beautiful light on the in breath has washed away. Let it go. And with this light, feel whatever the highest idea or thought that is currently available to you, of virtue, of beauty, of power, of compassion, empathy, understanding. Allow that to materialize and grow. And see yourself as deeply one with it. It's yours. You have created it. Now, with this unconditionally loving, benevolent, and gentle light, locate an area that you have been feeling anxiety, discomfort, stress or strain. And gently touch that area with this compassionate, understanding, and unconditionally loving light. Envelop it completely. Embrace it as you would an old friend in need that dearly needs to be heard. And listen to what it has to say. Quieten down and listen. Watch the feeling untangle and bid you farewell, thanking you for acknowledging it, finally. And then bring yourself back into your body, into this room. Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening. I think one big issue is that negative feelings or mental health issues in our current model of psychiatry, psychology, and society is something that is to be gotten rid of rather than a clue into the heart of your being. A voice from the depths of your intelligence attempting to inform you of something. A kind messenger, not there to threaten you, not there to bring you down, but the same way as if we were to, engage in physical exercise or stretch, your body will tell you if you're straining it too much, and you'll listen. But somehow, when it comes to the invisible side of life, which is what colors every aspect of our life, we have somehow learned and been conditioned to ignore it over and over again. A lot of that has to do with unresolved emotions and traumas from the generations above us who were not able to tolerate us when we were feeling deep negative emotions. But now that is put in the past, and we realize that we have complete power through these technologies and systems in order to come into contact with these feelings that are essentially unrequited, unmet, unheard. Last year, I was at this wonderful conference where global experts from every field come together to discuss kind of global issues and the importance of the role of spirituality in every field, of integrity, of authenticity within every field. And there was this fellow who was one of the speakers, and he had an African friend who's a philosopher. And in conversation with the two, the friend who's a philosopher had turned to him and said, "I heard that our planet is in deep crisis and we are in a state of emergency. So we need to slow down." You know, completely opposite of what one would expect, right? We are constantly in a state of action, constantly doing things. The way we have been programmed to believe how problems are resolved are often through doing, and never through taking a moment just to reconnect with the self and seeing what's true and in terms of what direction to move in an authentic and honest way. And I think that's the missing link, because if you want the mind to quieten, you need to leave it alone. It's like a glass that you're constantly rotating, expecting it to quiet down. The moment you put it down, that's when the water inside the glass finally reaches a stillness. And you're able to then observe and kind of distinguish, and what Romina, I was talking to you about earlier, discern, which is a really important quality in today's day and age. How do I discern the noise from the signal? How do I discern what is noise and pollution? And how do I then distinguish that and separate that and filter that away from the actual message, the actual essence, the actual signal? And that's what, at the moment, many kind of thinkers are calling, the war on sense making. They refer to it as, because it's a big issue at the moment, and many corporations and so on and so forth don't want us to be able to make sense of things, because they're constantly flooding our senses with information. So it's really difficult to gauge what's what through social media, through news outlets, through friends, and so on and so forth. And of course, unknowingly and inadvertently, in our hysteria, we become mouthpieces and fellow, we cooperate with that hysteria and that chaos, essentially. One thing I was going to say as well is that it's important to come back to this stillness. And it's really also important what's called, the wisdom of insecurity, is that my desire for things to be secure is what causes insecurity within me. There is a denouncement and a rejection of the natural order of things within my being, because I'm so tapped into the current system and I'm so habituated to a very set and narrow and linear way of life. It's very difficult then when life begins to expand its walls, and we get to see what happens now. So in that, if I'm in complete acceptance that all things are transient, all things are constantly changing, and I move joyously with that change and with that dance and with that flavor, with that variety, then life is incredibly beautiful. If I attempt to resist that change, then it causes a great deal of insecurity, because there's a stuck energy within me that I'm not willing to open up to.
That's a very interesting point, I think. Acceptance. I think I was waiting for that word this evening. Acceptance at a situation, as Gabby said before, that is uncontrollable, but acceptance of where we're at. But as you said right now, acceptance in the sense that we need to accept that if life is transient, if things are transient, if things are changing, then it's a little bit easier to navigate through anything that's uncontrollable around us. I think it's been very interesting to see both your perspectives on how to navigate through these storms, as we said.
Could I also add very, very briefly, and it's a point that's very close to my heart, and it's that even anxiety arises out of love, okay? below anxiety, there's love, but it's a love that is fragmented and conditional, and it's based on my localized identity. So I'm anxious, again, what we were saying, the anxiety comes out of a pure desire and a pure, a very beautiful intention of wanting everyone, and myself included, to be well, but it's based on external arrangements. So it's a localized, and that's why anxiety comes. And if I view that anxiety or go deeper into it, the deeper I go, the more I realize that there is a very gentle, unconditional love beneath that. I think that's what we're supposed to be more connected to than anything else, and come together and realize that we're in this together and kind of support each other through it. And anything that we wish to feel, create that feeling for someone else. If you wish to feel safety, create a safe space for someone else. If you wish to feel compassion, be compassionate and listen to someone else. See what they have to say. See what they're going through. Be with them.
An interesting one. If you're not feeling compassionate for yourself, as Gabby said before, compassion, as Buddha said, starts with the self. Because what you're saying as well is that maybe one way of bringing back compassion is to feel, or to create an act of compassion towards someone else.
That's right. Because there's a law. The moment I perform this act of compassion for someone else, the feeling, the intention of compassion is already moving through me. I'm the first being that feels it. And then I share it with someone else.
Amazing, amazing. There are a few questions coming up. So I thought we can take some of them up, because it's been very interesting. And thank you for that beautiful meditation that you did for us, Nick. I know we're going to do another meditation at the end of the session today with Gabby. So it'll be nice to have two different flavors. And just if there are any questions, please do put them on the Q&A panel as I ask them to the speakers. But until then, I just wanted to share that we will get a few exercise notes or handouts from both our speakers. So the meditation that was done by Nick today will be shared with us, and I will be sending that out with the recording and the replay of this webinar. So Gabby, one question for you that's come up. What would be the first step to overcoming excessive self-criticism? So, again, I think this
Gabby,
might be related to that compassion.
Just realized I had my mic off. To realize that excessive self-criticism comes from somewhere. These beliefs, like I said before, you were not, whoever is asking that question, you were not born as a little girl, you were not critical of yourself. If you look at little children, again, go back to the source. Little children are naturally joyful, a young child doesn't own anything, doesn't have money, hasn't achieved anything, and they naturally feel like they deserve the best. There's natural confidence in them, because these are things that naturally within us, not because we deserve it, because we do something, just because we are, right? And then that gets clouded with all kinds of things. So the person who's asking this, I have a feeling it's a lady, if I'm right or wrong, maybe wrong. It's coming from somewhere. Self-criticism. So again, this is a story that's come from somewhere in your past. You didn't grow up being self-critical. You've probably been around someone. So you've picked it up somewhere. Yeah. So we pick up through the course of our lives, we pick up thought forms, beliefs, as well as emotions from other people, from the people that from parents, from, friends, from all these people around us. So that is coming from somewhere. So realizing that so it's interesting, because when I was younger, I had this. I grew up with an uncle instead of a father, who was sort of like a father figure, right? The male person in the house, who was very critical and very tyrannical on many levels. So I grew up with someone criticizing me constantly, right? And then when I was in my 20s or something, maybe I was the same, always really self-critical and perfectionist and blah, blah, all these things, until someone said to me, someone very wise said to me, stop carrying your uncle's voice with you wherever you go. It was his voice. It wasn't mine. As soon as I realized, hang on, that's not even me. That's his voice. And also understanding that where it comes from within him. Because again, he was once a child, he was once someone. So again, people with negative emotions, with negative mindsets, with...
Gabby, the person is just clarifying that the overcritical person would be someone else, her ex-partner.
Oh, so how she's dealing with them. Is that the question?
Yes, I think because she's just clarified it as you were speaking, that, you know, that overcritical person, the other person would be someone in her life, just like in your case.
So how the person can deal with someone criticizing them. Well, who do you believe more, that person or yourself? So your point of reference, this is kind of what we talked about, how we started the conversation. Whether it's society out there who's telling us what to think, what to believe, what to write now, what to do, what not to do, or if it's a spouse, or if it's someone right around you, next to you, right? Why does your identity have to have anything to do with someone outside of you telling you who you are, what you can do, so anyone who could, and also understanding anyone who lashes out at you with words or actions, their battle is not with you, it's with themselves. Because if you are a happy person, whole, fulfilled within yourself, you have no need to do that to someone else. So this is stuff like with my uncle, within that person who's doing that to you. Bullies are very insecure people. They're people who are very afraid actually underneath. So even though they seem strong, they're actually the weak ones, yeah? So they're the unhappy ones. So just realize that whoever is lashing out at you or doing something, their battle is not with you, it's with themselves. So feel compassion for them. That's what I realized with my uncle. In the beginning, when I was younger, it was like clashing and trying to defend myself and justify and all that usual. I was in a story, you see, in this drama. And then I stepped out of the story because I learned to understand it. I learned to understand where it came from for him. I understood, okay, within his life, I can see where it came from, how he became that way, his own pain. And I started to feel compassionate for him and understood, okay, he's doing the best he can. And it's not personal. It has nothing, what he says, so this person is doing this to you, what they say to you has nothing to do with you, actually. Nothing. Yeah, it's projection of their own pain, of their own insecurities, whatever it is. So it's not you. It's not you at all.
Thanks for that, Gabby. I think it was very, very useful what you just said. Another question for both of you: how to protect our mental, emotional space when a person has been perhaps abused or has anxiety, and they've used that as a self, defense mechanism. So I'm struggling to reconnect to my true emotions, and the virus situation has delayed my therapy. I feel I'm only attracting people who see anxiety and not the true me. So basically the question is how to protect that mental, emotional space. Nick, maybe you wanna share first. And
sure. Could you reiterate the question? What space am I protecting? Sorry.
So how to protect your mental, emotional space, especially when you've gone through, abuse or situations that have caused you to become anxious and use that as a coping mechanism.
Right. I think this has a lot to do with learning to trust our feelings and our emotions about events and people and situations that unfold, because I think through the judgment and the kind of abuse from other people, may it be partners or friends or whatever else, and constant kind of belittlement or condescending or being patronizing, we begin to lose touch with our inner kind of authority, our inner sovereignty, the being that is able to make decisions in a very effortless and natural way, through just trusting feelings and emotions. So I think slowly just listening to that quiet voice within you when it's telling you to withdraw from people, or when it's telling you to step away from a situation, And if you are ever caught up in, you know, a bundle of emotions, rather than expressing it, remain quiet, take a step back, and then re-engage when you're kind of better prepared, or you're more attuned, you know, and then you're able to express your feelings in a very honest, self-respecting, authentic, unwavering way that one isn't able to when in a state of emotion. And people who are kind of abusive with us tend to thrive off of emotional reaction. So this is something to be very, very mindful of, especially people who are desensitized or numb. And the feelings of hyper, you know, expressive emotion makes them feel alive. And it doesn't make a difference whether it's negative or positive. This is the thing to understand. It just makes you feel alive. So then step away from that person if that's what you're seeing.
Mm. So taking a step back so that the other person can also calm down and you can re-engage, as you said, and feel a little bit more authentic.
I feel that way. And I think, you know, the main thing that and I've always said this, one of the main things that will protect you through life is your inner worth. Hold your inner worth incredibly high and do not compromise. This is very important. You don't have to be anything for anyone necessarily. And it's completely okay to kind of disconnect and just reconnect with your own emotional well-being.
Thank you for that. I think the person said that it was a very good answer, and thank you.
I'm
Gabby,
very happy.
any inputs for that?
For that question, I'm going to give a different input.
We do have a few questions, Gabby, and there's a question that's just come up for you. So maybe we can take that since we're running a little bit out of time. Hi, Gabby, you talked a bit about controlling our minds and emotions, if I understood right. Is it good to try to control anything? I just want to hear your point of view. Is it good to control?
That's a good point, whoever said this. Maybe we should change the word control. It depends how you define the word control. From control to manage or master. If you learn to manage or master your mind and your emotions, then it's not something where you feel like you're controlling, but you're guiding them. Instead of, so when you go and drive a car, do you let the car drive you, or do you take the steering wheel and do you tell the car where to go? It's the same with your mind and your emotions. They should be under your, I was going to say control, but under your, whatever you want to, so you should be managing it, right? You should be the captain of your ship and the master of your soul, right? Your mind and emotions follow you if you've trained them to do that. Otherwise, they're running you. So who are you running, your mind or your emotions, or are they running you? So it's more about mastering and guiding rather than controlling.
Absolutely. I love the word to master. Someone's asking, where can we find you online? And I think you mentioned your website, Gabby, and I if you wanted to share that with everyone.
Yes. It's brand new. It's actually just up today. So maybe if it's not 100% working yet, we tried to get it finished before the webinar. But it's called Gabrielle, my name, Gabrielle with double L, -innerjourney.com. So it's Gabrielle -innerjourney.com. And if it's not 100% working yet, give it 2 days or something, maybe check again in the middle of the week or end of the week, and then it should be up. The other page is the Facebook page, which is Law of Attraction by Gabrielle Fritz, I think you can see my name, but it's Law of Attraction, which is what I also teach, by Gabrielle Fritz on Facebook.
I will be sending both Nick and Gabrielle's details, because someone's asked for Nick's details now.
Yeah,
so
you can just email me directly if you wish to with any questions, or if you wish to work or whatever it is. Email me directly at, you can see my name there at the bottom left, Nick, and it's _Haddadi@gmail.com. So yeah.
I will definitely send with the recording replay and your notes, I will send them your contact details. And I have one last question before we move on to our meditation, short meditation with Gabby. And this is for Nick. So basically it's saying that you mentioned about anxiety being a form of unconditional love. And you said, you know, this might be something to do with local, you know, identity, and that person wanted you to express or elaborate a little bit more on that topic.
Okay. So there is something called the limited self, right? And the limited self functions on the basis of the body-mind. The body-mind is a construct or an amalgamation of concepts and ideas that I have of myself based on my body moving chronologically through time. And so those identities, those notions, those personalities, all of which through however many years I've lived have come and gone. And there's a being behind all of that is lovingly and gently observing from behind the scenes. So the anxiety comes from the limited being who believes it's separate and is a separate individual. And because our whole society focuses on this notion so much, you are an individual, you have to make it through the world, your education is personal, your grades are personal, your salary is personal, all of these things, which then make you feel, wow, I'm in this world alone. Whereas behind that, there is a being that realizes and recognizes that it's part of the natural process of the universe. It's come out of earth just as a flower does, you know, and it has consciousness, it has awareness, and so on and so forth. And to be closer identified or aligned with this ever-pervading, eternal, always with us awareness or consciousness. And for those who wish to kind of have a thought-provoking question to ponder on after this webinar is over, and it's, can you think of an experience that has outlasted you?
That is a hard question, Nick.
Okay.
We need a lot of time to ponder on that, as you said. Well, maybe it's our homework for ourselves. So I think there have been some fantastic takeaways this evening, and I really hope everybody has enjoyed the webinar as much as I have, with all the interesting questions and the thought-provoking comments that both of you have made about really reconnecting to our inner selves, not running away from our shadows, as Gabby well said, or as Nick said, really allowing our emotions to inform us about what is happening, what are our unmet needs, what are they, and what can we do about them. So I think there's been some brilliant takeaways here, and I wanted to thank you both for your time and for being here with us, and it's been really, really insightful. I'm sure everybody thinks the same as well. Before we move on to the short meditation.
Thank you, Ramina, for organizing this wonderful webinar, and
Thank
for
you.
so much goodness that's coming out of the Nutrition Collective, so thank you.
Thank you very much. We will be sending out the handout from Nick, and I think Gabby had an exercise as well to send us, and as well as the recording replay for this. So if we can dedicate just a few minutes to do a short meditation and close with Gabby. But before we do that, I just wanted to share with you our next event, which is happening actually next Tuesday. And a lot of people have asked me that we've heard a lot about the good or the positive impact of what vitamin C can do for us in terms of really supporting us during this virus, especially if we are infected. And as we know, there are lots of successful treatments using high dose vitamin C that have been proven and that are currently happening in China, in Shanghai, in Wuhan. So I would like to share our next webinar taking place next week on Tuesday, the 28th of April at 3:30, because we have a very interesting talk with Patrick Holford, who's a speaker, well-known author of Flu Fighters, a book that is really working on tackling COVID and giving us protocols for that. But we will also have Dr. Richard Chang live from Shanghai, who will be sharing his results of the trials on high-dose vitamin C and its impact on COVID-19. So I hope you all can try to make it. And if you'd like to be updated on all of our events and webinars, please do sign up to our newsletter and join our Instagram account so that you can be updated. So with no further ado, I'd like to invite Gabby to take us through a little closing meditation for this evening, to end this evening and to really reconnect to some of the ideas that we have shared this evening.
If you don't mind, for 2 seconds before I start, if I may also share something. That I have an event coming up. I run courses and workshops around the law of attraction and mindset work and emotional work. And I have a brand new 5-week program coming up, which is going to be held on Zoom this time, starting on the 13th of May until the 10th of June, every Wednesday evening for 2 weeks. So that's 10 hours in total for 5 weeks. And more information, I'm sure you can get from Romina at some point at the end of all this. Okay. If you could all, I'm going to put a little bit of music on in the background. If you could all just settle down and close your eyes. And just begin to focus on your breathing. There's nothing that you need to remember now. Trust that all of the information that you've heard so far, anything that's important, will stick with you. So don't worry about trying to remember everything, or just focus on your breathing and focus on the here and now. Make the here and now more important. And really enjoy your breathing, and don't try to control your breathing. Just allow it to happen. There's nothing you need to do. Just observe it and enjoy it. Savor it even. Just see how you feel sitting wherever you're sitting. What sensations are going through your body? How does it feel to sit where you're sitting? Your feet touching the ground. How does your body feel? Just observe yourself, your physical form. Don't get engaged in it, just observe. Just be here right now. And then begin to observe your thoughts. What thoughts are present? Don't engage in them, don't judge them, don't try to stop them, just see what's there. Same with your emotions. Just observe what emotions are currently present within you. How do you feel if you could describe your emotions right now? How would you describe them? And again, don't get engaged. Just watch, like you're watching clouds passing in the sky. No judgment. And then I want you to focus on a little part in the middle of your chest. light that's coming from the center of your chest. Very gently and small light that's growing and growing from the center of your chest, from the very core of your being. Because you're not this physical frame that you think you are. You're an energetic, a spirit being underneath all of that. Just watch this light slowly, slowly expanding from your chest and filling your torso. See the light going down through your legs, your feet. Just feel it cleansing your body. Feel the light moving up to your shoulders, to your neck, to your arms, down your arms, to your hands, just cleansing your entire body. And then feel the light moving up into your head, into the very darkest corners of your head. Feel this light from the inside out, cleansing you and energizing you. And this light is you. This is the energy and the power that's within you that you're maybe not using, that is always present within you, not just in this moment, but in every moment. And then feel this light, this energy, expanding around you in all directions, to the front, to the back, to the sides, down through your chair, your sofa, wherever you're sitting, down through the center of the earth, up from the crown of your head, up into the sky, through the ceiling, up into the universe. Just feel your entire energy expanding outwards to the sides. Imagine your energy, your light expanding outwards, through London, further afield to other countries, across the entire world. Just feel your energy expanding further and further into the distance. And see how that feels. How much stronger and more powerful you instantly feel. Just by reconnecting with your energy body. With the power that's already within you. With the light that's already within you. You're a limitless being. There are no limits. The only person setting limits for yourself is you. And then slowly feel this energy coming back towards your body. From all angles, from all sides, from the top, from the bottom, from the front, the back. Feel your energy returning into this room where you're sitting, into your physical body. Gently and slowly reconnect your energetic body with your physical body, your spirit body with your physical body. But from now on, keep these two connected, keep these two merging. Keep your energy body active and alive within your physical frame. And then reconnect with your breathing. And hold on, remember this feeling that you're feeling right now, this feeling of expansion, of strength, of power, whatever it is you may be feeling. Remember this feeling. And take it with you into your daily lives. "10,000 flowers in spring, the moon in autumn, a cool breeze in summer, snow in winter. if your mind isn't clouded by unnecessary things, this is the best season of your life. And then whenever you're ready, gently open your eyes again and come back into wherever you're sitting right now.
Thank you very much, Gabby. I almost didn't want to come back into sound because I was in that peaceful state. So it was a beautiful way to end today's session and to just remind us to reconnect with the self, to remind us that it's so important to look within and to really look after the inner being, as both of you said, so that we can feel more energized, feel more ready and prepared to look at what's happening outside and not waver, as you said, but be a solid tree. So it was very, very enlightening to be in the company of the two of you. I'm sure everybody thinks the same. Big thank you to both of you again. And hopefully we can all have a lovely evening and a lovely week ahead, re-energized.
Thank you for having us, Romina.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Good night.